Hello and welcome to episode 3, where we're taking a look at building the bass layers. So we're not going to look at the processing of these bass layers, we're going to leave that for the kick and bass bus channels. We're just picking the right sounds at this stage to go with our pads and our leads. And again, all these 3 sounds are included in the Born to Produce Uplifting Trance pack for Vital. And just to show you, we have our stuff over here. I've just moved it out of the way so we can focus on the bass. Okay, so we're going to start with the sub bass, and this is going to be a static F note, so I'm just going to scroll down a bit, and it's going to be 1 octave lower than that, and I'm just going to draw every offbeat note here, and the quantize is set to 1/8, so it just makes it easy to draw these offbeat bass notes. It's a lot easier to see, so the gaps are where the kicks are. So we've got that set up, that is on F, that is all good, we know it's the root note of the track. So the mid bass, this is where we start to get interesting. So the first mid bass we have sounds like this, and the second one sounds like this. And this is just the same way we did that with the leads. We had the main body and then the crispy top, and that is the same here. We've got the main body and then sort of sparkly crispy top part. And we're going to draw a simple MIDI pattern in, so I'm going to change this back to 16ths. So we've got 4 notes per beat. I'm going to grab the pencil, and we're going to miss the first beat, and we're going to grab 3 notes like so on that first section. So we're going to have something like this. Let's just solo this on its own, which all sounds great. I'm going to copy these across so we have 1 full bar. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix up the pattern. So we're going to grab the middle note, and then on the next set of 3 we're going to break out the 2 end notes and then repeat that again. Middle note, 2 end notes, and I'm going to transpose them 1 octave above. I'm just going to test to see what this sounds like 1 octave below. That could work. Let's just have a listen to how that goes first. So we're going to copy that right across. In fact, we'll just glue these clips together so it's all one. And there we have it, that is sounding great. Now the third mid bass is essentially a copy of the first, so I'm just going to make sure this is renamed correctly so we have the different names. As you can see, we've also colour coded these orange because my percussion is always red, so kick and bass, I can pull them out of the mix really quickly when I'm looking through a busy mixer. And jumping into that MIDI clip, we want to just take out all of the notes in the first 2 beats, so these first 2 beats here, and leave the last 2 notes, and then the next 2 beats delete, so we're just left with these 2 last notes on each one. Across, and we have our section. So now we're going to have this sort of effect. I'm going to remove the sub bass for now because we've done no processing, it's just making it a little bit muddy. Let's just focus on these 2 bass elements and how they work together. So these are like embellishments or accents, as they would be called in music, which just heighten sort of a portion of the rhythm and just gives it a little bit of a push and adds to the drive. Now with the mid bass, we don't just let this run away with the wind. This is all the same velocities at this moment in time. So I'm going to switch to velocity mode so we can see that when we change velocity, the quieter the note, it's going to turn more blue. So that means that note is totally off now. I've put it down to 0. Red is absolutely the loudest it will go, and you can see it's gone bright red, and anywhere in between is a fade between those 2 colours. And what we're going to do is focus on the first bar again, and we're going to solo the first mid bass. And what we're going to do here is actually draw in a sort of rise, but in a random fashion. They don't have to be identical. The more sort of human touch that you've got to them, it's going to make things sound a little bit more unique. And I'm just going to do sort of that on the last one. Bring that one up, it's a bit too quiet. So the difference between that is you're starting to get more depth character and drive out of the sound by having alternating volume levels. And what we're getting from that is sort of a side chain, a very basic side chain, just using the velocities. Now everything that's in this Uplifting Trance pack for Vital includes velocity sensitivity, and that means we can have quiet and loud notes. As standard, it wouldn't be set like that, but to make things easy for you, these presets are already ready to go. So instead of copying that and doing it for all of them, if you want to, that's fine. You could make every single block unique, but we're just going to copy them over because that's going to be enough for now. There we are. And don't forget these last two notes. Put them on the E flat and we're raring to go. That sounds much better than the original, so let's just compare both of them together. I'm just going to return these very crudely back to the 100% mark, somewhere like that. So I'll just have a listen to how different these sound. So if anything, it's a little bit softer than what I'd want it to be, so we can just zoom back in and we can make another edit. It's no problem at all. So I'm going to have the lowest value about here, and let's have the bass like that. That sounds much better. So we'll do something roughly the same for each one, like so. And we'll have that like that. Just so it's got a little bit more variation, and then we can copy these over again because it is really no problem at all just copying and pasting. Don't forget the two Fs on the E flat. That sounds much better. So now with the embellishments, we can do exactly the same with the velocity. I'm going to do the first 4. Like this. This is quite a harsh sound, so we're going to go for some lower velocity values on this one. I'm going to leave them like that and put this with the first mid bass. So hopefully you can hear that these are more integrated into the mix of that other bass, whereas this one just kind of sits on top and sounds awkward. And that's not something that we want. We want to make sure everything sounds lovely and integrated and in the right position. So there we are. That's sorted. And that's the bass done. All we're going to do now in the rest of the track when we start building it is follow in the bass of these patterns. So obviously in this section, we're going to follow that bass with our sub bass and mid basses, but we can build that when it comes to the time of structuring. Okay, so we're going to drag and drop a kick in here just to get a vibe of how things are going to sound, and then we're going to take a look at mixing those together in a future episode. So we're going to be using the My Loops 10 free trance kicks. I'll show you in a second how you can get hold of those, and we can see all the kicks that are on offer. We're going to use kick number 4, and now that we've got that selected, I'm just going to add a track, and we're just using a sampler for this. So I'll drag the kick there, and I'm just going to set this to red because that's what I always do in my percussion. And we're going to grab our pencil tool, set the quantize to 1/4. That is our kicks there. Instead, I'm going to use the line tool. I'm just going to drag that across. Just be aware, C3 for me is the correct pitch for the kick. In some doors, it might be C1, and some doors you might actually have to set it up to say which key you want to actually hit it on. So that's the kick there. I'm going to drag and drop the kick into the sampler. It's a little bit loud, so we're just going to go on here, and I'm just going to adjust the gain. Now you can see that I'm adjusting all of these by -6 on the pre-fader, and that is just... And you can see that all of these are set to -6. I do this across entire projects just so we've got a less hot signal coming into the track, and we can actually then start working on balancing the mix right without overloading the master out. And obviously as we go along, I will be showing you how to balance your mix. So back to this, it should sound a little bit more level now. And what we're going to do is jump back into the mixer, and I'm going to balance these out now with our faders. I'm just bringing down the embellishment. And the bass is a little bit too loud, so I'm just going to bring that down a smidge. That's sounding good. And the kick and the sub bass, we're not going to adjust these right now. We're going to mix them in the dedicated episode so you can get to grips with how to mix them properly. But for now, that's sounding good and you get a good idea of how it is meant to be sounding. And then we can drag across our leads. You can hear things are starting to gel together, and if you're choosing the right sounds, just like I keep saying, you are going to have a great sounding mix from the get-go. There is nothing on the inserts to shape this sound yet, they just work really nice together. And that brings us to the end of this episode. This is one of the free videos on YouTube. The next video is the last one that is available here on YouTube, but you'll be able to gain access to the rest of this tutorial series via borntoproduce.com. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.